Mind over money. Well, my mind's already made up. You need to shift your mindset into thinking about your finances. Hello and welcome back to SWBC's Uncharted Wealth Podcast, where we simplify complex financial topics and break them down in an easy to understand format. I'm Mike Walters. I'm a certified financial planner and a wealth advisor here at SWBC, where we're going to be breaking down tax planning, investments, retirement, Social Security, everything that can be thrown at you from the kitchen sink regarding your finances. Glad you're here for the third episode, and you can see things are getting pretty serious. Now I'm in a button-up, not just wearing a tie, so we might be getting on to something here. But I want to talk to you today about your emotions when it comes to your finances, okay? So I want everybody to think back to 2020, all right? COVID pandemic, March 2020. You know, what did the stock market do in March or April? Okay, everybody started freaking out. Oh, sell everything, go to cash, da-da-da-da-da, right? These are a lot of emotional reactions to what was going on in the world at the time, okay? And that's kind of our theme today, is talking about how you need to shift your mindset into thinking about your finances and not letting your emotions control the decisions that you make. So we're going to jump right in today, and some of the things I talk about today are going to be referenced from a book I actually read last year called The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. You might have seen it already in my stack of education here in the previous episodes. But some of the things I talk about today, I'm going to be referencing from that book as I think it's awesome. And, you know, we don't get paid for anything for recommending this book, but if you are a reader and you enjoy learning about finances or, you know, how they intertwine with psychology, it's a great pickup, right? So jumping right into the emotional drivers of what drives, like what moves you when it comes to your financial decisions, okay? And the first thing is fear and greed. Okay, now market cycles, and when I say market, I'm talking about stock markets, bond markets, really the economies that are moving investments. These markets cycle between fear cycles and greed cycles, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, okay? Now, the best and worst investment decisions always come from an emotional response, not necessarily a logical response. And that's where Housel points to, you know, financial success is not a hard science, okay? It's a soft skill. And where you behave is more important than what you know, okay? So knowing how the markets move, what's that saying? Warren Buffett said, be greedy when others are fearful and be fearful when others are greedy, right? That's appealing to being a contrarian to what everybody else is doing. And that kind of speaks to these market cycles going between fear and greed, you know, reacting to what's going on emotionally, right? So like when COVID happened and the markets tumbled, everybody starts freaking out. Oh my God, the world's going to end, right? No, it's not going to end, okay? It's just the whole world economy kind of just stopped, and, you know, companies stopped getting the revenues that they were used to, and people stopped making their rent payments, and, you know, this, that, and the other, and it caused the stock market to basically tumble quite a bit. And people see that and think, oh my God, my retirement savings is gone, and, you know, and they start wanting, oh, I need to sell to cash, this, that, and the other. Those are emotional responses, okay? Now, another emotional driver is what people call FOMO. Fear of missing out, not YOLO, FOMO, fear of missing out, okay? And the best example of this just happens to be also during the whole COVID pandemic with all the cryptocurrency and the meme stock craze, right? You know, did you buy GameStop? Did you ride that roller coaster all the way up? Well, if you did, you probably rode it all the way down too as well. So fear of missing out means, like, oh my God, these people are making so much money, you know, investing in these meme stocks or these tokens, these cryptocurrency coins that most people know nothing about, right? But they see other people making money off of it, or they're oh man, look at this stock I bought, look at this coin I bought, look how much it's gone in a day or two, and they want to jump on that bandwagon, okay? So that's another modern example of how that comparison and scarcity mentality is driving your financial decisions, which again is not what you should be doing, okay? This is similar to, I don't know if you've ever heard of keeping up with the Joneses. You're looking at your neighbor, they've got this fancy new boat, or they're got this nice house, or they're doing all these things, and you're like, oh, I want to do the same thing. I want to do the same thing, right? Fear of missing out is, it's what drives most people into debt. And that's why Americans are so in debt, because they're trying to keep up with everybody. They're trying to signal wealth, not build wealth, right? And so that's a big thing that you really need to learn, okay? So the key takeaway from this part is that your emotions are not bad, but recognizing them and creating some kind of guardrails when it comes to your investments and how you react to your finances, that's what's going to be key for your long term. Now, second part of this is really diving into why making small, consistent changes or actions over time is going to be more beneficial for you over the long run, okay? And the most powerful way to show this is with something called compound interest, right? So if you take two investors, one of them is 25 years old and one of them is 45 years old, okay? The 25-year-old investor invests, I don't know, $100, $200 a month for the next 20 years, okay? And then stops investing, right? Compound interest is going to have that investment grow and grow and grow over time. If you compare that to somebody that's 45 doing the same thing or investing like a lump sum of money when they're 45, that runway is a lot smaller when they're looking at retirement. And so, based on just simple calculations, that 25-year-old who started investing earlier is going to have more money when they go to retire, okay? Now, another principle that Household talks about is compounding, right? The power of compounding is the single most important force in finance, and it's driven by time, not brilliance, okay? So you don't have to be an expert in finances to understand this concept. It's just doing something early and often. Again, it doesn't have to be these big, investments, these big money moves, just getting it done, being consistent with it, and creating that habit, kind of like what I talked about in our first episode about creating those habits over time, is what's going to get you going in the long run, okay? A lot of people will overestimate, what they need to do right now, and they're not thinking about the little small moves that they can make that will compound over time. So, long-term investing is going to require some humility. It's going to take patience, which, I'll be honest, I'm not very patient. I'm not a very patient person. But there's a lot of people out there. Just being humble and patient and trusting the process of these small savings over time are going to compound is what's going to get you to the finish line. Okay, so key takeaway from this part is you don't have to be a financial expert, right? Just implementing the small actionable items that will get you towards your goals in developing those better financial habits. Now let's dive into the uncharted territory of today's episode, which is how do you actually shift your mindset when it comes to your finances, okay? So this is the part where you really want to pay attention if you need to get unstuck of where you're currently sitting, okay? So what I want you to always think of is pay yourself first, okay? Now, when you're looking at your budget, or you get a bonus, or you get a pay raise, or just managing your money in general, you always want to make sure that you are doing something that allows you to enjoy the hard work that you're putting in, right? Paying yourself first just means either putting it towards your now, like going on that vacation trip that you've been looking for, buying something for your kids that they've been asking for, something like that. Pay yourself first. Or it could be something as hey, I'm going to pay myself as far as investment goes. Like I'm going to put this towards my future, my retirement, pay yourself first, right? So you get your paycheck, set some aside for your savings or your retirement, and then spend what's left. A lot of people tend to spend first and then save what they have left over, if they have anything left over. That is the concept that needs to be flipped. Okay, you save first, spend later. And when I say save, I'm really meaning pay yourself first. I know it's kind of hard to wrap your head around because I'm saying, save, but pay yourself, right? But that's what it is. Saving is paying yourself. Okay, and the easiest way to do this is turning on some type of automation, right? Making it automatic, right? So you can usually go to your employer and change the bank account, where your direct deposit's going, stuff like that. Why don't you set up a separate savings account and say, what about every paycheck, have $100 go to this separate savings account? Or look at it as far as maybe upping your contribution to your 401k. That is paying yourself first because it's coming out of your paycheck before you have a chance to really screw things up. Just kidding. You're not going to do that because you're listening to this podcast and you want to better your life. But automating things make it easier. So that way, when you get a raise, you get a bonus, your life starts getting better. You're already got this habit created and it's just doing it automatic. Out of sight, out of mind. That's the goal here. Another thing to remember is wealth is not built overnight, okay? And so Housel says this in his book as well. The most powerful outcomes in finance are delayed, often by decades. So that goes back to the whole principle of compounding interest. So you may not see your 401k contributions or putting money in your savings. You may not see results or what the good of that is until way later. But trust me, 10, 20, 30 years down the road, you're going to be thanking yourself like, man, I'm glad I started doing this, right? I have so many clients that engage with me, and I've heard this from other advisors as well. They engage with us when they're in their 50s or their 60s, and that's when they start doing their financial planning or start looking to optimize their retirement and stuff like that. And they say all the time, man, I wish I would have done this earlier. I wish I would have started earlier. And it's kind of a conflict there, because when I'm talking to my younger clients, just trying to get them to think about these things, it's like, no, I don't have to worry about that. I'll push it down the road. I'll worry about it when it comes to that time. And then you talk to your more seasoned clients, put it that way, and they're like, man, I wish I would have done this earlier. So it's maybe talk to your elders, talk to your parents or your grandparents and ask them, hey, what's one thing that you wish you would have done sooner when it comes to your finances? It's a good question. Maybe talk to them or the next time you have dinner with them, or what holiday's coming up soon. Easter's coming up soon, okay? Maybe when you're having Easter lunch or dinner, say, hey, Grandma, what's one thing that you wish you would have done earlier with your money, It's just an idea. You don't have to do that, right? So, and then the last part to get yourself unstuck is to start being more proactive versus reactive when it comes to your finances, right? The active management of your finances is really there to create margin in your life. And that really just means for you to create an abundance, for you to create extra, okay? It's not just about looking back to the previous month and saying, okay, what did I spend? What were my expenses last month? Being proactive is more, okay, here's what I spent last month, but I'm looking forward. This is what I want to spend this month that's coming up or the following year, and then making yourself some guidelines or some guardrails, I think I called them earlier, so that way you stay within your budget and you accomplish those little goals that you're setting for yourself to save, right? So I'm encouraging everybody to shift their focus from how much can I spend to how much can I save, right? And it's so awesome. You hear people, oh, I spent this much on upgrades to my truck, or it costs this much when I went and bought Christmas presents for my friends and spent X amount, whatever. But start maybe in your circles saying like, oh man, this is how much I saved from my last paycheck, right? It's kind of a corny thing, but hey, this is why we're here, okay? Just shift the mindset. Be a saver and not a spender. And so the takeaway for this Uncharted section is to, in order to change your financial future, it's going to start with changing your mindset right now versus waiting until you cross the bridge. Listen to me. Don't be a silly goose. All right, well, I'm glad everybody made it towards the end of this third episode. And so just to recap what we talked about today, there were three main takeaways. And it was, number one, that emotions drive your financial decisions. And your emotions are not bad, but just being aware of them, that's where you're going to find the power in all of this. Number two, small, consistent wins, those small, consistent changes are going to be what's improves your overall situation over time. And third, that proactive money management is what's going to shift you from that scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset. How much can I save instead of how much can I spend, right? So my call to action, what I recommend everybody do at this episode is start thinking about what is one thing, one small thing that you can change when looking at your finances that will have a measurable impact over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, okay? And before I roll into the disclosures, I just want to say, like, although I would consider myself an expert with these things, I was not always that way, right? I was a client of a financial advisor, and the best way for me to frame the whole pay yourself first thing was if you already know that you're putting money away in your savings and you're doing what you need to be doing with your 401k and your life insurance, you're taking care of your bills, and you know you have an excess of cash flows every month, right? And you're just allocating that where you want it to go. When you get to the weekend or you have your fun money, it should be so much less stressful, and you'll have that peace of mind knowing like, hey, I can spend this without guilt because I'm already taking care of what I need to take care of, right? Like it's already been done, okay? So, and that's what helped me in this process of, when I was a client before I became an advisor was, just getting everything set up, like removing the complexity of having to make those decisions. Like just go ahead and make the decisions at the front end. This is how much I want to go in savings. This is how much needs to go into retirement. Make sure we have our insurance and our risk properly managed, okay? And then whatever's left over, you should be able to spend that guilt-free, no problem. So I just want to thank everybody for making it through this third episode. Would like to remind everybody that everything I talked about today was my opinion, not SWBC's or the executives or anybody that works here. Again, we don't get paid for talking about this book, The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. It's just a personal recommendation of mine. And pay attention to the disclosures at the end, okay? Everything we talk about is not to be taken as financial, tax, or estate legal advice. That's where you're going to need to consult your professionals. So we'll see you again in 2 weeks, and hope everybody has a wonderful rest of their week.
Investing involves certain risks, including possible loss of principal. You should understand and carefully consider a strategy's objectives, risks, fees, and expenses, and other information before investing. The views expressed in this commentary are subject to change and are not intended to be a recommendation or investment advice. Such views do not take into account the individual financial circumstances or objectives of any other investor that receives them. This information should not be considered a solicitation nor a recommendation of an offer to provide any service in any jurisdiction where it would be unlawful to do so under the laws of that jurisdiction. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. Please consult with your individual tax professionals and/or attorney for additional information.
Mind. Over. Money.